welcome back to the Imaginary Gallery. It is TJ, your host. We are discussing part 2 of Recognizing Covert Abuse, and we are referencing this book. Why does he do that? Inside the minds of angry and controlling men, which I've changed to people. The next section I was going to cover is the tragedy of abuse. This author tells us that abuse of women in relationships touches an unimaginable number of other people's lives. Even if we leave aside cases of purely verbal and mental abuse and just look at physical violence, he tells us the statistics are shocking. 2 to 4 million women are assaulted by their partners every year in the USA. The Surgeon General has declared that attacks by male partners are the #1 cause of injury to women between 15 and 44 years of age. The American Medical Association reports that 1 out of 3 women will be a victim of violence by a husband or boyfriend at some point in her life. The emotional effects of partner violence are a factor in more than 1/4 of female suicide attempts and are the leading cause of substance abuse in adult ladies. This book is not brand new, so I really don't want to focus too much on statistics and percentages, but we can just say that around the time of publication, these factors were around, but this is pretty old. In 2002, the government statistics indicated that 1,500 to 2,000 women are murdered by their partners or ex-partners every year, which takes over more than 1/3 of all female homicide victims. Next would be the effect of this abuse on children. This abuse sends shockwaves through the lives of children that may be involved. Experts estimate that 5 million children per year get to witness some kind of assault on their mamas, which is an experience that can leave them to be traumatized. Children exposed to such violence at their home, they show higher rates of school behavior problems and attention troubles. They have aggression issues, substance abuse, depression, and many other measures of childhood distress. Plus, this type of abuse has been found to be the cause of 1/3 of divorces among couples with children and 1/2 of divorces where custody is disputed. Now, as alarming as this picture appears, we also know that physical assaults are just the beginning of the abuse that women may be subjected to. There are millions more of these women who have never been hit or assaulted physically, but they live with repeated verbal assaults, or what I'd refer to as emotional abuse, which includes humiliation, sexual coercion, and other types of psychological abuse, which may be also accompanied by economic exploitation. Now, the scars from such mental abuse can be just as deep and long-lasting as wounds from punches or slaps in the face, but they're just not as obvious. In fact, even among women or men who have experienced violence from a partner, half or more report that the emotional abuse is what's causing them the greatest harm. The differences between verbal and physical abuse are not as great as many people believe. I always say that emotional abuse can last way longer than if somebody slaps you in the face and makes a bruise, or punches you in the arm and makes a bruise. Well, that fades away. With the emotional kind, it can be a lot stronger and a lot longer lasting. Mr. Bancroft tells us the behavior of either type of abuser grows from the same roots and is driven by the same type of thinking. So abusers of either category, physical or emotional, follow similar processes of change in overcoming their abusiveness, if they do change, which unfortunately is not very common, and the categories tend to blur. Physically assaulted people are also verbally abusive to their partners. Mentally cruel and manipulative abusers tend to gradually drift into using physical intimidation as well. In this particular book, there's a spectrum you'll be introduced to, ranging from those who never use violence to those who are absolutely terrifying. The extent of the common ground may shock you. One of the major obstacles in recognizing chronic mistreatment in relationships is something I've noticed as well, that abusive people just don't look like abusive people. They have great qualities. They have moments of kindness, warmth, humor, especially in the beginning, like in that love bombing stage if you're dealing with a cluster B monster. You think, wow, I've never met anyone as nice as this in my entire life. Wow, no one has ever cared that much like this person has. Oh, this is great. And then you're lured in. It's a game. It's sick. The person may have a successful career and have no troubles with liquor, drugs, or sex that you know of. The abuser may not simply fit anybody's image of what a cruel or intimidating person would be, especially if they have flying monkeys everywhere that they're always nice to, and they bite their tongue when they have a nasty thought, and they're just nice to everybody. So when a lady feels that her relationship is spinning out of control, it's very unlikely to occur to her that the partner is simply an abuser. The symptoms of abuse are there, and the lady usually sees them, such as the escalation in frequency of the insults. You look fat tonight, honey. You need to lose weight. Insults, put-downs, early generosity turning more and more into selfishness. So in the beginning, anything she wanted to do, the abuser was right there doing it. But after the hooks are sunk in, all of a sudden, those things don't happen anymore. I know a perfect example. I was living with a person who was very trim, but I figured we need to stay in shape. I said, hey, I belong to a gym. Why don't you join with me? And the person was like, oh, sure, okay, sure, and joined, and it was perfect, I thought. Well, once the hooks were sunk in, once things had become more permanent, all of a sudden, I'm not going, I'm tired, and wouldn't go anymore. Like in the beginning, it was important to me. I said, we need to be making sure we stay in shape. We don't want to falter. We don't want to become unhealthy and obese. We want to stay in shape. And the person, oh, sure, I will, and then stopped going. And I'd be saying, okay, I'm going. Let's go together. I'm tired. Oh. That doesn't happen, though, at the beginning stages. Verbal explosions will occur when this person becomes irritated or when it doesn't get its way. The target's grievances are constantly turned around onto her. This all sounds familiar. So everything becomes the target's fault. The evil creature's growing attitude that he knows what's good for her better than she does. And in many relationships, there's a mounting sense of fear and or intimidation. But see, the abusers usually see that their partner is simply a human being who can be caring and affectionate at times, and she's in love with him. She wants to figure out why exactly he has these tantrums and these fits so that she can help him break this pattern of these ups and downs. She becomes drawn into the complexities of his inner world, trying to find clues, moving pieces around in an attempt to solve an unfortunately unsolvable puzzle, other than the fact it's toxic and needs to be gotten rid of. The abuser's mood changes are especially perplexing, which I've mentioned elsewhere. It can be a different person from day to day, actually from hour to hour, minute to minute. Sometimes it's aggressive and intimidating, with a harsh vocal tone and insults just spewing out of the mouth, ridicule dripping everywhere like oil from drums. When he's in this mode, nothing the target can say will have any kind of impact, which is very difficult to take if you're used to using rationalization, and let's say you're saying something that's irrational, and then somebody points it to you. Well, you'd normally think, oh, well, oh, that makes sense. These don't do that. They continue on with their abuse, and they become even angrier. These people will twist the target's words around so that the target becomes defensive and feeling the need to defend herself. And so many partners of the clients of this author have said, I just can't do anything right. Other moments, though, he seems to be wounded, lost, hungering for love, and somebody just to take care of him. When this side emerges, to the target, it seems like, oh, he realizes what he's doing, he's ready to heal, and he may take on the quality of a child who's been hurt. Difficult and frustrating, but still lovable. And they always do seem to keep a few little things they notice that you attach to, that you find endearing or darling, and they do those repeatedly to throw you off or to keep you around. So when the target looks at this pathetic creature in its deflated state, it's very common for us to find it difficult to imagine that person can't be an abusive person. It's a wounded bird. Let me help it. No, you can't help it. But they many times love to play that role. The little boy lost, or little girl lost. The beast that takes over this creature at other times seems to be completely unrelated to the sweet, innocent little person who simply needs someone to love it. Now, eventually, though, the shadow comes back over these creatures, as if it had a life of its own. Weeks of peace may occur, but eventually the target finds herself under the assault once again. Then the head spins with the arduous effort of untangling the many threads of this person's character, until the target begins to wonder whether or not she or he is the one who's not right. Maybe her head's wrong, and that ties into gaslighting, because you are using your logic, you are seeing that something's wrong. I mean, it isn't normal for a person to be happy and ecstatic one moment and then switch to evil, cruel, and furious and hateful the next, and then back to the sweetness. It's like, how do you go from that extreme to this extreme? It's just not a real thing. These abusive people are fake, and the cluster B narcissist monsters fit into this category. Now, to make things worse, everybody the target talks to has a different opinion about the nature of this person's problem and what should be done about it. The clergy person may say, "Love will heal all your difficulties. Give your heart fully, and he'll find the Spirit of God." The therapist may speak a different language, stating that he triggers strong reactions in you because you remind him of his father or his mother, and you set things off with him because of his relationship with his mama. You both need to work on not pushing the other's buttons. A recovering alcoholic friend tells her, he's a rage addict. He's controlling you because he's terrified of his own fears. You need to get him into a 12-step program. Brother may say that he's a great guy. I know he loses his temper, but he does have short fuse. You're no prize of perfection yourself. With that mouth of yours, you just need to work it out for the good of the children. And then, to crown this increasing confusion on the top of her head, her mama or her child's school teacher or best friend may say, he's mean and crazy. He won't ever change. All he wants to do is hurt you. Leave him now before he does something even worse. Now, all of these people in these examples are trying to help the target, and they're all talking about the same monster. But notice how it looks different from each angle of view. Now, the target knows from living with this abusive creature that there are no simple answers. Friends would say he's mean, but she knows that many times he's very sweet and nice. He treats you that way because he knows he can get away with it, friends may say. I would never let anybody treat me that way. But this target knows that the times that she puts her foot down most firmly, he becomes angry and the most intimidating ever. If she stands up to him, he'll make her pay for it, sooner or later. That's another thing they do. You'll catch them or point out something horrifying, and they'll just act calm and passive. But you better believe these covert monsters have something planned in store for you pretty soon. And they know it'll be even worse if they pretend like everything's just great for the moment. It isn't. If this is an abusive person who needs something from the target and doesn't plan on leaving or replacing or discarding yet, eventually these people will promise to change their ways. They'll get friends and relatives to feel pity, here we go again, pity for them, and pressure the target to give it another chance. He will become severely depressed, which will make the target worry if he's going to be all right or not. Another scam. And depending on what style of abuser this person is, the target may know that he'll become dangerous if she tries to leave him. She may even be concerned that he might try to take her kids away, as some abusers do. Sometimes they don't even care for the kids, but they know the wife or whatever does, so they want the kids just to make the wife upset. How is an abused person to make a sensible picture out of all this confusion? How can she or he gain enough insight into the causes of this person's problems to know what path to choose? These are urgent questions. Now, the author tells us that professionals who specialize in working with abusive and controlling men over and over and over and over again had to face these same perplexing issues at work. Now, the author says he was a co-director of the first counseling program in the United States, and perhaps in the world, for abusive men. When he began leading groups for the abusers 15 years ago, they were as much of a mystery to him as they are to the ladies that these creatures live with. His colleagues and himself had to put a picture together from the strange clues faced by Christine, Barbara, and Laura. Several themes kept confronting them over and over and over and over again in their clients' stories, including,
I hope you can find it within your heart to give me another chance. I made a mistake. I'm not perfect like you. Hold on. Funk you, never mind.
My advice to you is don't go checking up on me. Don't go looking for anything, because chances are you're going to find it, but the problem is, whatever you find is not going to be valid, because I will have a valid explanation as to why what you thought you saw wasn't really what you did see. I am the Narcopath, and no one stands in my way. That includes you.
Read my lips.
Please, do not talk to me about martial law, because once that's signed into place, my act begins.
I've been instructed. I can kill anyone I want, and I'm gonna be glad doing it. Just make sure you aren't around the area if you want to keep you alive.
I am the Narcopath, and I'll be coming to a city near you soon. So look out!